just sagging.
Yeah.
Where it's rotted away. The bale itself is just falling apart. Really does make getting the net wrap off a lot more difficult.
So this is bale grazing, one of the ways that we use our hay. We put it in a hay ring for the dairy cows, and every time that there's a new bale that's required for these girls to eat, we move it to a new place. And what that does is it intensely impacts the area where they've been eating, because they stand there, they trample on it, they pee on it, they poop on it, and it does leave some carbon behind. But all in all, what it does is it enriches the soil underneath it as we move it around.
We use a couple of different things to put around the round bales of hay that we feed. This one is a newer style for us, at least. It's a poly pipe, and it's really light. It's easy to move around. We also, for our sheep, we are currently just wrapping a couple of cattle panels around the bale and strapping them down with a ratchet strap.
It's still on. You are, woo! You are brave.
I know.
Sport.
I'm gonna do a little fluffing of their hay. Sometimes the stuff right in the middle, they can't get to it, so I like to move it out to the outside where they can get it. Man, it gets stuck though. There you go.
Pete from Just a Few Acres calls it zhuzhin.
Zhuzh.
You gotta zhuzh your hay.
Gotta zhuzh it.
Hi, Happy. Hi, pretty girl.
Ooh. From what we've found so far, the absolute best way to regenerate the pastures is chickens. Look at that green rectangle right there where we ran the beef chickens or our meat birds back and forth in the pasture. Look how green it is. The broom sedge is going away and green grass is starting to grow. There's a distinct line where we stopped with the chickens. Crazy.
I think one of the most noticeable things is the fact that the little clumps of sedge are less in this area right now. They really trampled them down. And if you see this green circle right here, that's where the bale of hay was sitting with the ring around it. And already there's new grass coming up from the grass seed that came out of that hay. Around it, you've got a lot of trample and pee and poop and nutrients, not to mention all of the carbon from the hay that they kind of toss about with their mouths. But as well as time goes, that will turn into dirt. The grass seed will pop up, and this whole area, we ran, what did we do, about 6 bales in here a couple of months ago, and we can just already see a difference in what the hay and the cow impact has had on this small section of pasture. We're talking about kind of bale grazing them through this pasture pretty intensively over the winter, and I think it'd be a really good idea just seeing the amount of trample and nutrition that went into this soil. A lot of you have asked how things are with the leg, and the update is on November the 5th, Election Day actually. We went out and voted really early that morning. On November the 5th, they did ACL reconstruction, cleaned out some of a tear on the meniscus, and I don't know, I guess I had some arthritis in there, come to find out, underneath my kneecap, and they cleaned that out. So we did surgery reconstruction on the 5th. Today is November the 12th. And so we're a week out. It's going well. I'm getting some range of motion back, starting to strengthen it up, and I'll start physical therapy sometime this week. Thank you guys so much for all of the prayers and the comments and thoughts. Keep them coming as we continue to deal with this. As you can see, it kind of slows us down on the farming situation a little bit, but we still want to keep making videos, and it's just going to take a little bit longer because I'll be slow, y'all.
I mentioned that there are different ways that we wrap around the bales for bale grazing, and this is one that we have set up for the ram lambs right now. They are currently grazing in this bale with a cattle panel wrapped around it, and we cut some holes in the cattle panel. Let me show you what we did. We have holes cut in the cattle panel, and what that allows them to do is to get their heads in to pull out the hay. So we have some gaps cut down lower, some gaps cut up higher. Hi, Tank. Hey, big guy. One of the main things that we use for putting hay out on our pastures is the original Greg Judy Bale Unroller. We drove up to Greg's farm when we first moved here and picked this thing up. It rolls down the highway. It's rated up to like 75 miles an hour. So we drove, it's about 3.5 hours, I think is what it was for us.
True.
About 3.5 hours, and we drove up and picked this up from Greg. Got to chat with him a little bit. And one of the things that Greg really talked about was hay and putting hay out onto your pastures instead of taking hay away from your pastures. And if any of you watch Greg, you know that he refers to himself as a regenerative rancher. And one of the things that's a highlight for us here is to regenerate our pastures. In order to regenerate the pastures, we're going to put hay onto the pastures instead of taking hay off of the pastures. And as we were talking with Greg, he even asked us, did you cut any hay? And we said, well, yeah, but we're going to put it back on our pastures. And he was like, folks, now don't do that.
Yeah, he did. We were scolded. We haven't hayed since.
So we haven't hayed since then. So we buy hay from someone else's farm and put it out onto our farm. And these are 3 of our livestock guardian dogs.
If you haven't met them yet, this is Lucy, this is Tozer, and over here is TJ. Hi, guys.
These guys roam free around the farm, and they do a great job of protecting everything from any predators. We do have mountain lions and bears and coyotes all around us. And then the biggest thing is raccoons and possums and skunks. And they do a great job of protecting the farm from all of those things. And you already met Tank in with the lambs.
So the next thing that we're going to do is get this hay right here hooked up to this Bale Unroller and take it to those beef cows that are complaining.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just sagging.
Yeah.
Where it's rotted away. Look at it. I mean, like the bale the bale itself is just falling apart. Can you see it?
You'll have to. Oh,
It's
it's just
just
composting.
It's just composting
no.
on the bottom.
Oh no. What in the world?
Well,
Let's go give it to him.
okay.
Well, the cows seem like they're really ready for something to eat. They're just going to eat it right before we even give it to them. But we got problems.
So the hay is rotting on the bottom, but I mean, while that nutrition is lost as far as the cows go, because they won't eat that rotten hay, it's not lost as far as the pasture goes. So the carbon that's left, the hay that's left on the pastures that the cows don't clean up, just feeds the soil. It feeds the worms and the microbes in the soil. So while the cows aren't going to get any use out of that, the pasture will. Like, it's not a complete and total loss. And it reminds me, our mentor was saying, when we asked him, how much is hay worth? Like, what would you pay for hay? And he told us what his mentor told him, and that was, as far as regenerating your pastures go, hay is worth whatever you paid for it. So, I mean, yeah, it's disappointing that the cows can't eat this portion, but it's not a loss. It goes to feed the pasture. So, enough talking. I don't think the cows...
They think so.
I don't think the cows care.
No.
They just want to eat. It really does make getting the net wrap off a lot more difficult, though.
Yeah, because it's like 50 pounds of dirt. Get back, cow.
This is just wet, rotten. We'll go to immediately feed the soil.
We source our hay locally. It's really, really good hay. The cows do great on it. And so while it's super disappointing to see it misshapen and to see it rotting in ways that it shouldn't be, especially in November, we just got it in July. We're going to do the best that we can to make the best of it. And the cows are certainly thrilled to have the hay that they've got.
So while you're bale grazing, the impact is concentrated in one small area, basically around the bale and then out, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 feet out from the bale itself. And that area right in a circle is really impacted. And the bales where we were grazing, you can see that in the very middle where the bale sat, grass starting to come up. The difference in a bale graze and unrolling the hay, as you can see, this now, the entire bale is spread out over a large area, and the seed is spread out and the carbon is spread out, so you get a larger area impacted by the cows. More, the carbon is spread out more, but there's a little bit more waste when you do it like this. When you unroll it, they're able to stand on it. You can see almost all of them are standing in the hay as they eat it. And while that in and of itself isn't terrible, while they're standing, they will pee and poop in the hay. And then once they do, they won't eat that spot. Like where they poop, they're not going to eat that spot of hay. So there is some more waste as far as the hay is concerned. When you unroll it, the impact area is greater. And the field that we're standing on, as well as the ones behind us, we have unrolled hay for 3 years now. And the impact, the difference that it has made on those fields is significant. It is very noticeable. These fields, when we bought this place, were basically just scrubs. It was bushes and briars and brambles and little saplings. And I mean, like it was really scrubby. And now, while they're not perfect, there is grass that grows here. It's been an amazing transformation in these fields because of the hay, and the fact that we can regenerate these pastures with the ruminant animals and the hay is just amazing. That's one of the awesome things that we think of as we say regenerative farmers, is we're taking these pastures that were basically useless, like you couldn't do anything with them. They were just brush and shrubs. And now they're growing grass. And the hay and the ruminants are the answer to that. This is regenerative farming right here.
So this yucky stuff almost looks like a hay bomb went off back here. And this is just another spot and evidence of unrolling the hay and putting carbon back down on the land. This was a pretty bare spot right in here. And so what we decided to do was unroll intensively several bales of hay and make the cows pee and poop and put some hay and trample that. And then probably by spring, what this will look like is just pasture. The grass will start to come up and we're adding more dirt. You know, the underside of that bale, it's funny, as sad as it is, the underside of that bale is evidence. That's evidence of what that hay is going to do once it's on this dirt and covered up. It's going to turn into compost, back into soil. The grass is going to grow. We saw that inside those hay rings where it was just a few months ago with that little baby grass coming up. So we know that while it looks horrible on the underside of that bale, all is not lost, because this right here is going to turn into amazing soil for more grass to grow and to support more ruminant animals on this property. Well, if there's one thing that we've learned over the years, not so much me, but definitely him, it's how to debrief yourself to the highest degree, even if it's the last thing that you want to hear and really talk about. And basically, here's how you screwed up.
Yeah.
And we screwed up on this one.
Yeah, so in a fire pilot debrief, you start with, was it the plans, the products, the brief, or was it execution? And typically, not always, but typically you back all the way up to the plan. And a lot of times you can find your error happened way back here in the plan. And for us with our hay this year, the error happened all the way back in the plan. We wanted to put in a septic system in the area where we normally store our winter hay. And you can see that the ground is torn up, and we didn't know exactly where we wanted the septic system when we purchased the hay. So in order to mitigate that, I thought I will stack the hay too high, and that way it will only take up half of the ground space that it would normally take up. So that was my plan, was lessen the amount of acreage,
The footprint
of
the whole bunch of it.
the hay, in order to make it where we could put in the septic system.
In years past, this is not how we stored the hay though. In years past, we have listened to the likes of Greg Judy. One year we put it on pallets. Each one had a separate pallet. Nobody was touching. That worked okay.
One year we put it, Greg talks about setting it on logs.
Yeah.
We put it on 4x4s. Each bale had 2 4x4s that they were sitting on.
That worked pretty good.
Yeah.
There wasn't that much waste.
Last year we set them directly on the ground, and we didn't have much waste last year either with them sitting directly on the ground. So this year the plan was set them directly on the ground, and then because it's a lot of work to do it the other ways, especially the pallets, because our pallets are really heavy.
Right.
So set it directly on the ground, and then the plan of reducing the footprint came in, and
that's where we got this. So what not to do? Don't stack your hay, especially if you don't have a barn. If you have a barn, put your hay however you want to because it doesn't get wet. But another part of this farming journey for us has been learning. Every single thing that you do on a farm, you're gonna learn along the way if you've never done this before. We're 3.5 years into knowing how to farm. And part of the risk of starting an entirely new career, an entirely new journey is we didn't grow up doing this. We don't know the proper way to store hay. So we learn things along the way on YouTube, and that's fantastic. But that doesn't teach you everything always. And what you don't know is that everywhere the hay is touching, more hay, you're going to get moisture. It's going to hold
the potential for rot.
You have the potential for rot. And there are certain ways to stack it next to one another that you get less rot. And this is not the way to do it. It's all misshapen. It's completely out of whack. And it's rotting faster than we want it to. The hay on top's fine. It's the stuff that's underneath.
Yeah. So our plan moving forward is we're going to take the top bales, and those are going to be the ones the areas that we are bale grazing. We're going to use the bales on top to do that because there's very little rot there. So the cows are going to be able to access it all the way around. And those bales are going to be fine. And the bales that are currently on the bottom with the big squished rotten spot on the bottom, we're going to use those to unroll, and that rotten spot will go immediately onto the pasture and turn into soil immediately because it's already soil, and the rest of it will get spread out and the cows will be able to eat of it what is there that they can eat.
So lesson learned from Air to Ground Farms to you is don't stack your hay.
Not like this.
If you don't have a barn, don't do this. Learn from our mistakes.